Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:37. I would like to call this meeting to order. Vice President Ferguson, would you do the invocation, please?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, thank you, Father. We just give you the glory and we give you the honor. And we just thank you for an opportunity to come before you to give you thanks and to honor you and honor your presence. We invite your presence into this meeting tonight. And we thank you, Lord Jesus, that you are Prince of Peace. So we ask for that peace to be in here tonight. Father God, we just ask that you would help us, give us guidance, counsel, and let us feel your spirit in this place. And Father God, Matthew 18 and 20 says that whatsoever we bind on earth should be bound in heaven, and whatsoever we loose on earth should be loose in heaven. And Father God, I loose any opposition. I loose distractions even that has been taking place as of now, Father God. Father God, I just ask that you would just continue to bless us. Father God, I bind opposition, disrespect, any type of disorder in the name of Jesus, and I loose truth, peace, and Father God, progression, Father God, in the name of Jesus. Father, as we do the legislation on tonight, let us do it in peace and order. In Jesus' name I pray, amen and amen.
Amen. Council Clerk, do the roll call, please.
Councilwoman Fareed.
Here.
Councilwoman Guillaume.
Here.
Councilman Herring.
Here.
Councilman Hairston.
Here.
Councilwoman Jones.
Good evening, everyone. Here.
Council Vice President Ferguson.
Here.
And Council President Curtis.
Here.
All are present.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or opposition?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring.
And we don't have to do it tonight, but if we want to, I need to go into a closed session to discuss personnel.
Okay. Just make a note so I remember. And if I forget, please just, Council Clerk, just remind me. Any other discussion? Any opposition to the added piece? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, the amended agenda is now adopted. First up on the agenda is the vote on legislation. First legislation up is R03-2024, a resolution to authorize legal work to form a nonprofit 501c3 to operate the Glenarden Farmers Market. Council Clerk, could you do the official reading, please?
Sure. Resolution 03-2024. The sponsor is President Curtis. On behalf of administration, the public hearing was held on September 12th. It was introduced on September 5th, and we are now in regular session. A resolution to authorize legal work from a nonprofit to form a nonprofit 501c3 for the Glenarden Farmers Market. Whereas the City Council of Glenarden adopted Resolution 32-2023 to establish a farmers market in the city of Glenarden, and whereas the creation of a nonprofit 501c status for the farmers market will allow the city to apply for grants for the farmers market for programming, equipment, facilities, and other benefits for the local community, as well as the farmers and growers who participate in the farmers market. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of Glenarden, sitting in regular session this 18th day of September 2023, that 1. The legal work for establishing the nonprofit status of the City of Glenarden's Farmers Market was outlined on August 17th, 2023, from a letter from City Attorney Kevin Karpinski. Shall be performed by the City's Attorney's Office at a cost of approximately $4,880 up to $5,100, not including the annual filing fee, and reports to be completed by the City Attorney's Office as a nonprofit entity's tax representative. Number 2, that the law firm of Karpinski, Hornbrooks, and Karp, PA, are designated as a nonprofit entity's resident agent representative for the purpose of filing applications and annual reports as they may be required.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Councilor Button. Is there,
Request for information, adoption of the agenda and the minutes.
Oh, yeah, we did do
we did the agenda.
Oh, that's
We accepted the agenda
Yes.
and the minutes.
We didn't have minutes.
You don't have minutes this month, right?
With your last meeting, you didn't accept your last meeting,
No.
which was in June or July?
There's special circumstances that required us to move that to next month.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, Is there a motion to bring this to the floor for a vote?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Vice President? Oh, sorry. Vice President Ferguson.
Okay, this question is directed to City Manager. The paragraph starting at 26, number 1, where it speaks about the cost being approximately $4,880 up to $5,100, and then it goes on to say not including the annual filing fee. So is this the dollar amount that's quoted? Is this a one-time fee, and then thereafter there will be an annual fee, which would probably, hopefully, be smaller?
Yeah, yes, the legal work is one time to set up the 501c3, and then in the letter, for August 17th letter from Mr. Kapinski's office, there will be some additional annual costs for filing fee with the state. Annually, there is a requirement to set up to file a report to the state on the annual amount spent. The report that normally goes to the Secretary of State as a nonprofit. It's required annually, and that would be at their hourly rate. It's not. This is not going to be, $4,800 to $5,100 a year. This is just to set up the nonprofit.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Harry.
Yes, I'm still wondering why we're going through this whole process with the nonprofit. So I reached out to Councilwoman Jolene Ives, and I spoke to her and to see exactly what was required for the program that she has under her purview that allows her to distribute, grant money to nonprofits. So I printed out the list of items that she actually funded for the last fiscal year to the tune of $100,000. And so I was explaining to her what we're trying to do, and she really didn't understand why we are creating a nonprofit when we can apply for grant money through our municipal government. She didn't understand the need for, this to be done, and asking for $25,000, which I haven't seen her give anybody that kind of money. If you look at the list of items that she has on here, the most she usually gives is $5,000. So I explained to her, I said, we're trying to do a farmer's market, and we're trying to, get it off the, off the floor, get started. And she was like, and they want to do a nonprofit. The city wants to create a nonprofit. And she's like, why are you doing a nonprofit? I'm not understanding. I said, I'm not sure, but it has something to do with this grant money that you have in your possession that you can distribute to the tune of $100,000. And she's like, well, why would you do that through a nonprofit when you can go through the city? She's like, also, there's other programs that you can go through to the city that also assist you with the grant, with the farmer's market. So I reached out when we had the meeting with the 24th Legislative District. We had the City of Seat Pleasant was there, so I reached out to their city manager because they're actually, Ms. Ojo, they're actually getting ready to do a farmer's market. So I asked her, I said, well, what are you doing? She's like, well, we're partnering with the capital markets. And Capitol Heights is actually doing the same thing to do their farmer's market. I said, so is it a brick and mortar? She's like, well, not really. She's like, we have a firehouse that we're trying to get, and we're going to have it in there one day a week on Saturdays. But Capital Markets is going to assist us in getting the vendors and getting the farmers to come out to it. I said, so are you doing a nonprofit? She's like, oh no, we're just, we're the municipal government. We're going to sell, stalls. We're going to rent stalls out for that. So again, I'm not sure why we're doing the nonprofit route when I think that's going to take up a whole lot of time. It's going to add another cog in the wheel when all we got to do is reach out to capital markets or the state of Maryland and be part of their program. And the state of Maryland will also walk you through the process of how you can accept SNAP. So again, I think this is like reinventing the wheel when there's a lot of other resources out there that can get us started much quickly. Because like right now, we really need to be talking to farmers and getting on their list so that they can actually, schedule us as one day during the week when they can come up and actually attend to that. Attend a farmer's market. Again, I mean, like I said, I'm talking to Councilman Jolene Ivey. She just didn't understand the whole nonprofit designation of creating a nonprofit within the city of Glenarden or within the municipal government. So I'm just saying I think we need to look at this much more closely before we move through forming this and see if there's other options that we can do without having to go through all of this that would allow us to actually have a farmer's market ready to go by next season, by next harvest season. This, I think, is going to be drawn out. I think creating a farmers market, you got to have a bylaws. A nonprofit, you got to have the bylaws. You got to have a board. You got to have all of that in place. And is this going to be autonomous of the city of Glenarden? Is it going to, will we have oversight over this nonprofit? If they have their own bylaws, what would the bylaws say when it comes down to appointing people to their boards? Is there going to be an executive director? And if so, are we going to pay them? All of these are questions that are going to have to be answered and asked and budgeted for. And I think that we really need to just, pull this back and just do a little bit more research on creating a farmer's market. Because again, talking to other municipalities, and even Jolene Ivey said in Cheverly, she don't think they even did a nonprofit. They just basically rented stalls. They partnered with someone who knows about farmer's market, and that's what they did. That's what they do every year. So. That's just my feeling. I think we need to just look at this much more closely before we reach out here. Again, we got a list of what she does fund, and there's not one item on there over $5,000. And I don't think she's going to give us a fourth of her $100,000 budget for a farmer's market that really doesn't need that type of money to really move forward. All you're doing is renting space. The farmers come, they set up the tables, they set up everything that's needed for them to vend. We just got to give them space and, provide adequate, a person to basically oversee the program. Capitol Heights said they're going to have their events person there, the events person oversee their market since it's only going to be there once a week. So I think we need to look at this before we move forward with this piece of legislation and see what other options are out there that would be much more, that would afford us the expediency that we need to actually get on the schedule of the next planning season. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harry. Mm-hmm. Any other discussion? I did have a question. Is there a plan for, is the 501c3 just a conduit through which we're going to receive the grant, so there's not going to be staffing or anything of that nature?
That is correct. If we want to look back at the legislation where the farmers market was passed, you'll see how it was structured in terms of how it would be organized for the people to be involved. It would be the city manager and others who volunteer to coordinate those activities that would be doing that on a volunteer basis. Again, the point of establishing the 501c3 is to create another avenue for us to get money. The operating budget that was stipulated in the resolution that was passed earlier this year states that the operating budget is up to $25,000. Those initial volunteers would be tasked with outlining all of the expenses that would be required. So it's not saying that we're definitely spending $25,000. And this is also not saying that we are asking Councilwoman Jolene Ivey for $25,000. This is, again, just another way for us to access funds that are available at the county level. This does not preclude us from applying for other grants or anything else. The main goal is to try to establish this farmers market in a professional manner without using city funds if possible.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion before we move forward?
Mr. President, may I?
Yes.
I think the question that a lot of that Jolene Ivy had was, what is the money going to be spent on? So we don't even know what the $25,000 that we have in the budget is going to be spent on. Again, you will have to have, once you form this 501c3 and your bylaws are going to say you're going to have a board of directors, you're going to have a president and everything else that we have up here right now. And that's a 501c3 is just not, you just get a designation and you do bylaws and that's it. 501c3 is going to require a board. You're going to have to, like even Mr. Kapinski says, they're going to have regular meetings, monthly meetings. He says individuals interested in formulation and operation of the entity should be aware that it involves a commitment to hold regular meetings, keeping agendas and minutes, as well as ensuring that the entity's meetings and banking records are available for public inspection. So it's basically a little organization within our organization. It's still going to have to be basically scrutinized to make sure that they're on the up and up, and you will have to have a board to run that no matter what. That's going to be part of your bylaws. Who's going to, board, how it's going to be appointed, who's going to run it, and everything else. So it's like, it's just regular nonprofit organization like any other nonprofit. You're going to have all of that. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to dissuade the farmers market. I think we should move forward with it. I just think we can do it more expedient if we just pull a nonprofit organization that's already in existence, that has this experience, that can give us the information that we need. Because basically all we're doing is renting space. That's it. We're giving them a stall space to sell their goods. And I think that that should not cost the citizens or the city anything. We're supposed to be giving them the opportunity to be able to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, not, fund something that, with all these funds, with city tax dollars, when we really don't have to, because we're spending just to do this. We're spending what, $5,000 just to do this, and that's $5,000 that we could use somewhere else. Honestly, I see it. Mm-hmm. And if it is something that we have to do over there on a piece of property, which I don't think there's anything we have to do over there on a piece of property where the bank lot is, that $5,000 can go toward that, and you got $25,000 in a budget to address that issue. But other than that, I don't see the need for a nonprofit organization when, again, as Councilwoman Jolene Ivy said, why would you do it through a nonprofit when you can do it through your municipal government and eliminate the middle person? Again, when they get those funds, they're going to control those funds, not us. The nonprofit controls those funds. We can't tell them what they can and cannot do with those funds. So it's almost like the housing authority. That's an autonomous organization over there. The money they get, they control. Even though we may appoint them, they control it. So I think that we are on a slippery slope, because once they get going, they are a nonprofit. They are registered with the IRS as a nonprofit, and they can do whatever they please without this city's consent. So I think we're really opening up Pandora's box here.
I just want to make sure that we're not relitigating the legislation. It's already been passed, because the legislation for the farmers market and how that would be structured and organized has already been established. And with that, even if we do not have a 501c3 status, there will still be a steering committee consisting of 10 members. And it lists out those different members, including city personnel as well as residents who would be a part of that, and that they will be meeting regularly. So these things around the administrative aspect of whether it would be a board of directors or whether it would be a steering committee would be the same, regardless of whether we establish the 501c3 or not. Again, the purpose of establishing the 501c3 is to create another avenue for us to access funds. Per the resolution, if we want to talk about expediency, this steering committee should have already been established, but we've been contemplating how money is going to be spent. It's sort of putting the cart before the horse. We need to have the committee established so that we can establish what funds will be necessary to use the land that we talked about. There is land available. That land needs some improvements to it in order for it to be usable as a farmer's market. I'm certain that if it was just as easy as putting up a tent, that a farmer's market would have long ago been established in the city of Glenarden. So I think we can all agree that there was some additional work that needed to be done to establish that. Hopefully this farmer's market doesn't cost us a thing, and that is the objective. Again, the reason why we are seeking to establish this as a 501c3.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
One
Yeah.
second. Councilman Hairston had his hand up. Councilman Hairston?
Yes, hey. So I was just gonna ask, was anybody against having a meeting or talking with Councilwoman Ivy and tabling the legislation until we get further information? Or how did everybody feel about that?
Well, you have to put,
No, shoot, go ahead.
yeah, so, you said that you wanted to talk to,
I wanted to know if anyone was against talking to Councilwoman Ivy about what's going on and tabling the legislation until we get further information and see what our,
oh, okay.
you know,
Well,
see what our benefits are outside
yeah.
of this we're talking about now. Because no one has, you know, I heard Councilman Herron said that he spoke with her, but I'm not sure if any of you guys have spoke to her, but I know I haven't.
Okay.
So this information came directly from Councilwoman Ivy's office, and we have the written communication around that. That was what we were told. This is not something that we're independently kind of doing on our own and saying that that's what we want to do. It was made clear to us, and I think City Manager also provided the information from the County Council that is the status that is needed in order to receive appropriations from any council members at large or from Councilwoman Ivy's office. So again, the purpose of establishing this 501c3 is to give us an avenue to accept appropriations from the County Council.
And Councilman Hairston, two things. One, does that satisfy your interest? And two, if it doesn't, in order to do it, you have to have a motion to do that. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes sense. I just heard two different things, so I was just trying to figure out if we can just get some information clear.
Okay.
And it's not to say that anybody is giving, you know, false information, but I'm hearing two different things. I understand what Councilwoman Fareed is saying, and then Councilman Herron just said that he had different information that he got from her today. So I just wanted to be clear, that's all.
So are you making a motion to table it?
Sure, why not, yeah.
And I don't, parliamentarian, I don't know if that's,
Mr. Chair, he was making a recommendation.
a recommendation.
That's what I heard right there. He's never made a motion, so he's making a recommendation. But then you're asking for him to table it. He can't table it, but make sure that when you table it, it has to be either at this meeting or the next meeting coming up, that you bring it back up.
Okay.
Time frame. So if you're gonna table it, then he can move to table it, with a second.
To the second. All right. Mr. Hairston, did you hear that? If there's a motion, which I thought I heard a motion, then it has to be a date tied to the motion.
You don't have to say the date, just to let you know that that is the rule.
Okay.
We just want to table it till the next meeting,
Okay.
until the next meeting.
And it has to be a second.
Yes.
Is there a second?
So let me get clarification. So shouldn't he just state what the purpose of what he's actually doing? So I move to table. So that he needs to say, I move to table this.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so I moved the table.
Second.
And then the vote, correct? Yes. Council Clerk?
Councilwoman Fareed,
No.
Councilwoman Guillaume,
No.
Councilman Hairston,
Yes.
Councilman Herring,
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones,
No.
Council Vice President Ferguson,
Yes.
Council President Curtis,
No.
the motion to table has been defeated.
It dies.
Dies.
So, Mr. President, I did have a comment before we moved on to the vote, because, if I may,
Yes, Councilman Harris.
Again, so I'm even more concerned now, because if we pass the resolution saying we're going to have a committee that's going to oversee the farmers market, and then we're going to have a nonprofit that has to have a board appointed, then you got to commit another committee overseeing that. So who's running the nonprofit? Once the nonprofit is formed, that's out of our jurisdiction. That's out of our hands. Our committee that we have that's supposed to be addressing this should be the one actually coming to us with the recommendation of a nonprofit, not us basically putting another layer of bureaucracy. Because I'm gonna tell you straight up, once that 501c3 is formed and that board is seated, this council has nothing to do with it, and they will not be able to tell it what it can and cannot do. And you can try all you want to, but it's under IRS rules and regulations. It is an independent 501c3 with its own EIN number, not under the city, not under the purview of the city. What we need to be doing is moving through our committee that is established in the first piece of legislation and see what they recommend and see what they can find as for funding for this endeavor. Because again, now we got two layers of bureaucracy, a committee that's going to sit there and make recommendations, and you have a nonprofit that'll probably be like, I don't care to hear your recommendations because we're an independent nonprofit. Again, and the city has no say in that. Like I said, again, you're opening up Pandora's box. You have a layer of bureaucracy that I think that the attorney needs to be even looking at this to see if we're moving in the right direction on this, especially with the piece of legislation that was originally passed, as Councilwoman Fareed just mentioned. So, like I said, again, I think we are basically, now we're putting the cart before the horse, and we're throwing a stone on top of that, because I think we're going to be in a serious situation with this piece of legislation if we move forward with it without getting a clear understanding from the attorney, from the committee that we're supposed to form, and actually have the committee actually form this if they want to do it. I think we're tying the committee's hands, and we ain't even got them in place. So why don't we take it step by step, get the committee in place that we're supposed to get, make a recommendation to them what we're looking at, and let them look into seeing what actually is going to serve our purposes. I'm not understanding why we need a nonprofit for $25,000 when we got $8 million sitting in a bank account. I'm not understanding, and it's been budgeted in our budget. So any other time I'd be like, okay, if you can get free money, fine. If you can get it without all of this red tape and all of these layers upon layers of bureaucracy, fine. But right now, we're really running into a dangerous situation here. And once that's formed, it's it. And I guarantee you it's going to be out of our hands, and there's not a thing that we can do about it. So, I mean, that's just my feeling on it. Thank you. Thank you.
I do have one question. So, thank you, Ms. Herron. Mm-hmm. One of the examples that so I hear Councilman Herron speaking, and one of the things that pop in my mind is like the annual filing of like the 990 and things like that. How will that? Who's going to be in place to do that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So with nonprofits, right, you have your annual filings,
Yeah.
tax filings. It's tax exempt, but you still have to file things like your 990. Mm-hmm. Who will be in place to do that?
Typically with nonprofits, it's the treasurer for the organization, the nonprofit that files. And that could be, treasurer for the city. It could be anybody that is appointed based on setting up a 501c3. And I could see every single council member being the 501c3.
I'm sorry, you can see every single
council member could be appointed to start up as the board. So it's a question of how you prefer to do this. Yes, you have to have a board. Yes, you have to have a separate EIN number. But that's not prohibitive in terms of you already have the city EIN, but an additional EIN for an organization that's affiliated with the city, controlled by the city. And to me, it's similar to the county council sitting as a district council. It's a separate kind of functioning. I mean, you could do it that way. You can make that decision, or like Mr. Herring said, you could turn it over. At some point you say, well, we want this to roll off and be its own organization. But for now, I mean, Mr. Stewart can be the treasurer, and they can do the filing on our behalf as the legal folks on behalf of the city filing whatever reports we have, annual reports we have to file with the IRS and the Maryland State Secretary of State. You have to file a report and you pay, I'm affiliated with another nonprofit, we pay $75 a year for an organization that has less than $100,000. So it's a creation of your making.
And so that was my point in reading what the resolution that we passed said, that those people who are already stipulated would be, in my expectation, would be the people who would be on the board of directors for this nonprofit, not some other people who would, and it not be within the city's control. Again, the point of this was not to establish a separate entity just for the sake of establishing a separate entity. This is to allow us to operate the farmers market just as we intended to operate it, but also now this gives us another avenue to access funds. So from my perspective, we wouldn't be doing anything differently other than these filings that would happen on an annual basis. And the cost of doing those filings are not prohibitive, as Ms. Habita said, it's $75. So really the cost would be this upfront $5,100 with the expectation that we would still be able to access the appropriations funds as well as other grant funds that would allow us to operate and not use any of the $8 million or the $25,000 that we've put into the budget. So this is, to me, just an investment so that going forward we have the farmers market is something that continues in perpetuity, and that we don't have to start it and stop it because we don't, whatever's happening with the city funds, and that we can just have this avenue for that. So again, the purpose was not to establish a separate entity to be run by others and for it to not be part of the city or out of the city's control.
Thank you. I have one more question, might be two. And thank you for the reminder of that. Do you recall who were tapped to be?
Yes, it is the city manager, the treasurer, the director of public works, the chief of police, 3 council members, and 3 residents, 1 from each ward, serving 1-year terms. The city manager shall be the chair of the committee, and the city council shall approve the 3 resident members in accordance with the city's committee appointment requirements. And the committee was supposed to commence its first meeting on or after April 18th with at least 7 members. The steering committee shall establish the farmers market's rules and regulations. The steering committee will create the vendor application process and define the vendor qualifications. So all things that the board of directors would be doing is what the steering committee would be doing. We just now have that status that would allow us again to access the appropriations funding from the county council members at large, as well as our council member. And there are other benefits to establishing a 501c3 beyond accessing funds from our county. There are other organizations that would be able to provide us with funding that would not be able to give us funding as a governmental entity, but as a 501c3, they would be able to invest those funds with us.
Mr. Chair, while you don't have to accept it, I recommend that you reconsider the vote that was previously done so that you can determine who is the chair, how to proceed, what would the bylaws be for that committee, because it appears that, and Mr. Harris was absolutely correct in how you move forward with a 501c.
But point of order. So, as a parliamentarian, I appreciate the advice on how to organize the meeting. Okay. It sounds that you have stepped over to give an opinion on what we are discussing, which might be valid, but it's not valid in this meeting.
That's okay, because that's what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not beside you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Unless I missed something.
Yeah, Mr. President, let me just say this because
I'm sorry, and I want to be clear on that because I'll accept any structure for the meeting. You started off saying that we should add something on to the motion, so But, all right, Councilman Herring.
Yes, and again, because this is really getting very concerning, because again, what was just said in the original resolution is what you're basically getting ready to duplicate in this nonprofit. Bylaws, rules, regulations, how it's going to be formed. So the committee is going to sit there and form it. And then the committee is going to sit as a, and let me just say this, as for the county council sitting as the district council, that is done by law, zoning law. Zoning law requires that development over there to go before the district council because it's required by law. They don't do it any other time except for when it's required by law. Most projects get approved easily. But in this case, again, we're talking about a piece of legislation that's already established a committee of 10 people. And then you're going to have those 10 people also act as board members on a nonprofit organization that's being established. And the attorney is going to establish the bylaws. So who's going to give them the input on the bylaws? Is that what the council is going to do?
The council would be the board, part of the board of directors. I guess I do not see the duplication. There's not going to be a separate group of 10 apart from the 10 that have already been designated to be part of the steering committee. I will say that if the council feels that there are other avenues that we can pursue and does not want to have the avenue of being able to access funds as a 501c3 would be able to access them, when we vote, we can choose to not vote on that. I personally do not feel like I'm not married to the idea of us having a 501c3. I just simply wanted to have another avenue for funding. I reached out to our county council office, and that is the direction that we were told that we would need to establish as a 501c, and that would give us access to the county council funds, the appropriation funds specifically from council member Ivy, as well as any of the at-large council members. So at $5,000 apiece, that could be a significant amount of money that is allocated to us. That is not to say that that's the only avenue of funding. So if the council wishes to not form a 501c3, my feelings will not be hurt. I think it is fine. We can still continue to go on. I would like for us to, make a motion to vote.
Mr. President, may I just one follow up on one other concern? And it'll be a quick one.
Councilman Herring.
Basically, I implore my colleagues to please talk to the actual elected official and not to their office staff, because their office staff do not know everything. Now, when I talked to the actual elected official, she wanted me to call her on this. And that's the information that she gave me. She doesn't understand why we're doing a nonprofit when there's so many other means we can get funding through our municipal government. So the staff can tell you one thing, but the actual official who actually distributes the money is telling me something else. Mm-hmm. So, that's what I'm saying. Just make sure you reach out to the elected official to get definite clarification, because the staff may know some things, but she's been in the business a long time and she can give you the actual facts on it. And like Councilman Hairston suggested, I think it should have been tabled so that we can reach out to her and have a conversation with her to see what she's actually saying, because now we got conflicting information from her staff and then information from her. I tend to go with the more seasoned veteran who's in the position and who actually controls the purse strings of the money. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, because this information is available on the PG Council site, the Special Appropriation Grant Awards. The fiscal year 2023 approved county budget provides $100,000 in grant funds for each council member to designate and allocate to local county nonprofit service organizations, 501c3 charities. So this is not, speculation. Again, this is not the only avenue for resourcing, which is why I did not want to table this, because we can just, if we don't agree, if council members don't want to pursue this avenue, we can just say no and move on to the next. We can still have the farmers market. We can still operate even if we didn't get funds from anyone, because we do have it budgeted.
You're saying you don't want to table it even if it passed and we decided not to move forward with it?
No, what I'm saying is the reason why I voted not to table it is because why are we prolonging something when it's not necessary? If the council doesn't want to have a 501c3, then we will vote on it right now and not have a 501c3, and that will be the end of it. We shouldn't have to keep revisiting it. It's not as though the 501c3 is our only avenue to get funding.
Yeah, so, all right, so I appreciate that. So I think the thing was there are council members who aren't necessarily against it, but want more clarity and information. Because possibly they do want to support it, but at this juncture, they would not be able to support it because they don't know, because they're getting conflicting information. And I think that was what I heard from Councilman Hairston.
Right, so Council President, in that
Correct.
case, then we would have voted to table it if that was the will of the council,
Yeah, okay.
to get more information on it.
All right, one last comment, Councilwoman Guillaume.
I was just probably going to say something that was already previously stated, so I will try not to take long. I was just going to say that again. at
One
least for
second,
me,
Councilwoman Guillaume. Mr. Gray, can you turn her up, please? We could barely hear her. All right, try it again, Councilwoman Guillaume.
Is this better?
Yeah, a little better, yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to scream from where I am. I was just going to state that this was probably stated already, but again, the intent behind, at least for me, the intent behind the 501c3 designation was just from a cost savings perspective. Yes, we have money, but if we can allocate resources from other entities to come and support our work or our legislative efforts, then that's what was behind the designation of the 501c3 status. So I too am not tied to having a 501c3. What I am saying, however, is just because we have money in our budget doesn't mean that we should not look for other avenues that will enable us to have our work funded and enable us at the same time to save the money that we had budgeted to explore other opportunities to support our citizens. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Parliamentarian, can there be another motion to table it?
You have to rescind the previous motion.
Have to rescind the previous motion.
Yes, you've already voted on it. So at this meeting, you can rescind the previous motion.
And how would I do that? Just say rescind the previous motion?
I move to rescind the previous motion on table.
I move to rescind the previous motion to tabling it. Do I need a second? To tabling the resolution, the 501c3. And do we need a second, correct?
Yes.
And I think Councilman Harrison just seconded. Council Clerk, could you do a vote again, please?
Councilwoman Fareed,
No.
Councilwoman Guillaume,
Yes.
Councilman Hairston,
Yes.
Councilman Herring,
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones,
No.
Council Vice President Ferguson,
Yes.
Council President Curtis.
Yes, and just let me say that I am on board with 501c3. However, I do feel that some council members are willing to support it and just needs more time to understand it, which is why I think it's a good compromise just to table it until our next regular session in October so that we can move forward, and hopefully by then everyone have all the information that they need to move forward with the decision on the 501c3, because I do agree that having it will open us up to more funding availability.
Right.
All right.
Council President, I just would like to add that this should not impede our progress with identifying people
No.
to be a part of the farmers market. This is not a dependency to have a farmers market.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Everything that's already passed with the other resolution, you guys can move forward with that.
Thank you.
All right. Hopefully that was the only long one of the night. All right, next up is R04-2024 resolution to authorize an indefinite quantities contract with NZI Corporation for street improvements throughout the city of Glenarden. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 04-2024. The sponsor is President Curtis. On behalf of administration, the public hearing was held September 12th. It was introduced on September 5th, and we are in regular session today. A resolution to authorize an indefinite quantities contract with NZI Construction for road improvements in fiscal year 2024 that include street milling and resurfacing, sidewalk replacement, and ADA improvements, curb and gutter and driveway apron replacement, ADA sidewalk improvements, and installation of new speed humps that may be approved by the city under a pilot program. Whereas the city adopted the FY24 budget with a capital allocation of $700,000 for milling and resurfacing of roads, $292,350 for general concrete improvements to include sidewalks, curbs, gutters, driveways, aprons, and installation of speed humps as a pilot program, and $40,000 for ADA sidewalk improvements. And whereas this work is authorized without a formal bid process pursuant to Section 818C, in lieu of the contract bid process required by this section, and in place of Section 821A, B, and C of the city charter, whenever a federal, state, county, or local government or any other agency thereof whose purchasing policies are comparable to those of the city of Glenarden has conducted a bid and awarded a contract, the city may purchase by contract the bid item and at the bid price from the successful bidder, subject to approval of the mayor or council. Prior to the city's purchase of an item, service, or materials from the successful bidder of another jurisdiction, the city manager shall obtain a copy of the jurisdiction's purchasing policies. Whereas Prince George's County has conducted a competitive bidding process and awarded an indefinite quantities contract to NZI Construction Company, PG County Contract 932-8, to perform all road improvements specified that the county contract and the county has executed their contract with NZI Corporation to the end of the calendar year 2024, as noted in Exhibit A. And whereas Prince George's County purchasing policies are comparable to those of the city, and whereas the council declares that the provisions of Section 818B of the city charter have been satisfied, so to justify the waiver of the competitive bidding process required by Section 818A of the city charter. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Glenarden, sitting in session, this regular session, the 18th day of September 2023, as follows. 1, that an indefinite quantities contract with NZI is authorized not to exceed the following budgeted items. A, $700,000 for road improvement to include milling and resurfacing is warranted and charged in FY24 capital budget line item 30.80.10.7611. B, $292,350 for concrete improvements / replacements to sidewalks, curb, gutters, driveway aprons with driveway aprons replacement limited to streets where major milling and resurfacing work is done, and for the pilot program of speed hump replacement, with the $292,350 allocated budget for concrete work to be charged to the FY capital budget line item 30-80-10-9530. And C, $40,000 specifically to cover the cost of the ADA sidewalk improvements to be charged to the FY24 budget line item 30.80.10.7611. 2, the city manager will provide the city council with the street and sidewalk analysis completed by the engineers Charles P. Johnson Jr. and Associates, CPJA, for review. 3, road and concrete improvements will commence upon approval of the council for their designated streets, sidewalks, and other concrete work. 4, payment for the indefinite quantities contract work shall be charged to the FY24 capital budget to the accounts noted in section 1. And 5, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Motion to bring this resolution to the floor for a vote.
So moved.
There's a second. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring?
I still have a problem with those aprons that were put in this piece of legislation. Again, the driveway aprons are the responsibility of the homeowner. And if we have extra money left over, maybe we can look at driveway aprons, but as of now, that is the responsibility of the homeowner. Who's going to pick and choose whose driveway? Now, like I said, again, if it's a driveway apron that's, lower than a sidewalk and it needs to be brought up, okay, we need to address that situation. But just to do people's driveway aprons because they're crumbling or something, that's on the homeowner. They drive over it and they salt it and put down whatever they need to do for ice and snow. So I do have a problem with the driveway aprons being put in the air. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the point of clarity, I think last time we agreed to leave it in there, but since it has to come to the council had the final say-so on what's getting approved.
I still had a problem even then.
Yeah.
Still had a problem even then, so.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Council Clerk, your voice.
Councilwoman Fareed?
I also had a problem with the aprons being in there, but I do know that the rest of this work needs to be done. So as long as this comes before the council to approve the specifics before any work is done, I am satisfied. So I vote yes.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear her.
She said yes.
Yes.
I
okay.
said yes.
All right, thank you. Councilman Hairston?
Yes.
Councilman Herring?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ferguson?
Yes.
And Council President Curtis?
Yes.
Vote carries.
All right. Next up is R-05-2024, resolution to approve the 7th Street Park survey for cost and floodplain delineation work by CPJA. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 05-2024, sponsored by Council President Curtis. On behalf of the administration, a public hearing was September 12th, was introduced on September 5th, and we are here in regular session. A resolution accepting a cost proposal from Charles P. Johnson Jr. and Associates, Inc. for topographic survey of 7th Street Park. Whereas the council approved a contract with Charles P. Johnson and Associates Engineers, CPJA, in June 2023. Whereas adopted in the fiscal year budget 2024 includes APR funding for the 7th Street Park. And whereas CPJA has provided a cost proposal for a topographic survey for the purposes of providing the information CPJA will need to prepare a floodplain delineation to be submitted to County DPI as part of the 7th Street Park project permitting process. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Glenarden, Maryland, sitting in session on this 18th day of September as follows. 1, that the City Council authorizes the expenditure of $9,275 for completion of a topographic survey as a prerequisite for preparation of the floodplain delineation of the 7th Street Park. And 2, that these costs shall be charged to the American Rescue Plan funds designated for 7th Street Park improvement, line item 9532 3080-10. Be it resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to bring this to the floor for a vote?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition?
Mr. President, I ask for a voice vote.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
Yes.
Councilman, Hairston?
Yes.
Councilman Herring?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ferguson?
Yes.
And Council President Curtis.
Yes.
Vote carries unanimously.
All right. Next up is R-06-2024, resolution to approve street analysis and sidewalk analysis cost proposal by CPJA. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 06.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay. Councilwoman Fareed is going to give you a break. Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes, a resolution accepting cost proposals from Charles P. Johnson Jr. and Associates, engineers for analysis of all city streets. Whereas the council approved a contract with Charles P. Johnson Jr. and Associates, engineers in June 2023, and whereas the adopted fiscal year 24 budget includes funding for engineering service, and whereas CPJA has provided 2 cost proposals for an analysis of city streets and an analysis of city sidewalks for the purpose of collecting data on street and sidewalk conditions for the development of a plan to guide the scheduling of street and sidewalk work over a period of years and for the purpose of annual budget appropriations planning for such work. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of Glenarden, Maryland, sitting in regular session this 18th day of September as follows: that the City Council authorizes the expenditure of $19,875 for an analysis of all city streets and $8,060 for an analysis of all city sidewalks to be completed by CPJA, including a review of areas where new sidewalks may be needed to address the safety of school children, adults, and senior citizens. That these costs shall be charged to the professional services engineering account 10.10.10.7131 line item within the administration's budget at the not to exceed cost noted in the May 2022-2023 cost proposals submitted by CPJA. Be it resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Is there a motion to bring this to the floor for a vote?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Harris?
So is this an expenditure of in total $935? Because you got 19,875 on line 29 and 8,060 for an analysis.
Yes, they're two
Awesome.
separate.
Huh?
They are two separate, yes.
So I think I think the total cost need to be put in here so that we know exactly what we're voting on. The total is $27,000 and whatever, $27,935. Also, I think we should also in line number 35, it says not to, within the administration's budget, not to exceed costs noted in the May 22nd, 2023. I'm not going back to May 22nd, 2023 to see what the cost is. They need to put the cost in here. Not to exceed what? I think we need to know exactly what not to exceed. So whatever the total is here, 27,935 should be put in there. Another thing is, it's saying it's pulling from line 7131. 7131 in the administration budget is actually professional services lobbyist. 7130 is actually professional services. 7130, as of now, does not have enough to cover that line item. The balance in that account now is 19,508. And we're looking at 27,935. Again, but I guess I'm not understanding, I mean, We pass stuff for a reason. We did pass a resolution appropriating money to assess the streets through ARPA. Why are we not using those funds?
City Manager Bob, I'm sorry. City Manager Habita.
In terms of the two separate ones, what's attached is the detail on both the sidewalk and the street conditions. So they are two separate things, and they were all attached to the resolution, so you could see which is which. So yes, there are two separate items. In terms of the line item, it should go to professional services. At least it's labeled in my budget as saying engineering. And as far as I know, in terms of engineering costs, we've maybe spent out of the 32, maybe $5,000 has been earmarked. And I could be corrected on that.
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm looking at a June 23 budget. Finance report. That's
Okay.
what it is. That's going to be a problem too, because we should have something more recent than June 30th in September. I'm not understanding why we June, July, August, September, 3 months behind in the finance reports.
July and August, yes. Well, we're not through September, so we're behind by 2 months. Yes,
2 months. So
I understand.
We will be 3 months by October.
By the first, yes, sure.
But I'm thinking we need to get caught up on this. That's what the problem is, because how can I sit here and make a informed decision on whether I want to vote on this, whether I don't see the actual numbers and what the balance of what's left in the account. Again, how did we move from one line item 7130? So what is lobbyists in the 2024 budget? What account number is that?
Well, I could go up and get my copy of the budget, I guess, but there are two separate line items. And
Well,
one
you
is
have
for
to go and get your
engineering.
copy of the budget when the treasurer is sitting right there.
Well, because I'm not sure he brought that with him, but the current.
As we have it here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Treasurer, you
As
can.
we have it here, yes, the account numbers as presented in this June is correct, where lobbyist is 31.
Oh, you turn it on.
7131, and professional fees 7130.
So what is the account number in 2024? 7131?
7130. It's 7130.
So I had the wrong count number?
Yes.
It should be 7030?
It should be 7130.
Okay. So we need to correct that.
Again, and there should be a total in here so that we know exactly what the amount we're voting on and what not to exceed. I'm not, this splitting these numbers is not doing it for me. I think the citizens have a right to know the total value of the resolution that we're voting on, which is $27,935. So I think that need to be added to this legislation, not to exceed $27,935. And the account number needs to be changed, but again, I need to see the financial reports, a current financial report.
All right, 1 second. Councilwoman Fareed.
I would like to make a motion to table this until we get more information.
Okay. I second it. Any discussion? Any opposition? All right, well, this resolution will be tabled until the next regular session in October.
Well, the next work session, no? When it come back to the work session, so we.
Oh, I'm sorry, work session in October, and then should have passed that go on to the regular session.
Yeah.
Treasurer Stewart.
The only addition I wanted to put in this is these costs should all be, consolidated to the capital, because this is a part of the cost of, setting up the streets. So I think all of those
Okay.
costs should have been in the same capital expenditure.
We have time to
So
work
we'll
on
look
it.
into that. Yes,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you.
next up. R-07-2024 resolution authorizes the purchase of Dodge Durango pursuit vehicles from New Holland Auto Group and upfitting.
Whereas the city's administration has determined that it is in the public's best interest to authorize the Glenarden Police Department to purchase 2 new vehicles to increase the effectiveness of the department, and whereas the administration seeks the council's approval to authorize the purchase of the police vehicle within the current budget under line item 8367-30-80-10, and whereas it is necessary to purchase 2 Dodge Durango pursuit vehicles, VIN 1C4RD JFGXPC 674140 and 1C4RDJFG5PC 674143 from New Holland Auto Group as attached in Exhibit B at a price of $85,060 as attached in Exhibit A. And whereas the administration intends to procure these vehicles through an already negotiated contract between the state of Maryland and New Holland Auto Group, therefore meeting the requirements established in Charter Section 818C, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Glenarden, sitting in regular session this 18th day of September 2023, has determined that the purchase of two 2023 Dodge Durango Pursuits from New Holland Auto Group for a total amount of $85,060 per the invoice attached as Exhibit A to this resolution B, and it is hereby approved, and payment for the vehicle shall be made from line item 8367-30-80-10, support equipment, police cars under capital project function within the fiscal budget, and this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
The motion to bring this to the floor for a vote?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring.
Okay, I just want to be sure that the quote that we have is still accurate, $85,060, because I'm looking at the fine print and it says this is only an estimate. So when was the last time it was verified that we still getting this price?
The price is in the resolution.
Go to the mic, please.
Effective August 2nd.
2022. August 2nd, 2022.
You have to turn it on.
It's over a year old.
They do.
There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, the price that you just read is the price of the 2 vehicles.
Okay.
Okay, just want to be sure.
All right. Any other discussion?
Yeah, the gentleman is just waiting for you all to sign the last page so I can send it to him, so I can scan it to him and email it to him, and we can take delivery of the vehicles.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Fareed?
No.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
Yes.
Councilman Hairston?
Yes.
Councilman Herring?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ferguson?
I do have another question. On this invoice, it does say it's the effective date, August the 2nd, 2022. Again, the question that Councilman Herring asked, had it been confirmed that this is still the same dollar amount?
Yes, that's still the same price. Nothing's changed. They've been holding the vehicles for us. They were just waiting for the budget to pass, waiting for me to give them confirmation that the budget had passed.
Or pass?
Should pass.
Council President?
Yes.
Council Vice President?
Pass.
All right.
Vote carries.
Final is R-08-2024, a resolution to upfit police vehicles with the contract with Global Public Safety.
Whereas the City of Glenarden, Maryland maintains a police department for the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare of its citizens, and whereas to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, the police department must maintain an adequate number of police vehicles along with the necessary equipment for each vehicle, and whereas 2 police vehicles are in need of outfitting such as lights, sirens, and transport compartments to properly serve the needs of the police department, and whereas Global Public Safety LLC has submitted a quote for the purchase of equipment for 3 police vehicles attached hereto as Exhibit A. Whereas Section 818 of the city charter requires that the city engage in a competitive bidding process for the procurement of goods and services with an estimated cost exceeding $2,000, except that whenever a federal, state, county, or local government or any agency thereof whose purchasing policies are comparable to those of the city has conducted a bid and awarded a contract, the city may purchase by contract the bid item at the bid price from the successful bidder, subject to the approval of the mayor and council. And whereas the state of Maryland has conducted a competitive bidding process and awarded a contract to Global Public Safety LLC for the purchase of equipment for police vehicles, State of Maryland BPO number 001B8400207, and whereas the state of Maryland's purchasing policies are comparable to those of the city, therefore meeting the requirements established in Section 818C, and now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Glenarden, sitting in regular session this 18th day of September 2023, has determined that 1, that the mayor be and is hereby authorized to sign a contract in a form acceptable to the city attorney with Global Public Safety LLC for the equipment listed in Exhibit A and in the total amount of $41.80. 2, funding will come from the general fund public safety police account line item 8367-10-55-50 support equipment. 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Is there a motion to bring this to the floor for a vote?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
1 second. Vice President Ferguson had her hand up first. Vice President Ferguson?
She's too quick.
Captain Jackson, is this outfitting for the 2 car vehicles that were just approved?
Yes.
Okay, because I see here that the quote was done September 8th, so it is kind of 2023 opposed to 2022. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilman Herring?
Actually, Councilwoman Ferguson actually was asking my same question. I was making sure that the date, it is current and that we're good with this price. So,
Yes, that's a quote that was given to me earlier.
okay.
The only thing I have, I'm sorry, Councilman Herring, were you done?
I'm done, yes.
The only thing I have is that in line under now therefore be resolved, 1, that the mayor be is hereby authorized to sign a contract, should be the mayor and the council president, just in case the mayor's not here. Someone else, the council president, can sign a contract. Mayor or.
I'll update it.
Okay. All right, with that, any other discussion? All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Fareed?
No.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
Yes.
Councilman Hairston?
Yes.
Councilman Herring?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
Okay. And I hope this will be the conclusion of some cars and equipment for a little while, but my answer is yes.
Council Vice President Ferguson?
Yes.
Council President Curtis?
Yes.
Vote carries.
Thank you. All right, next up, Council Clerk, do you have your handy? All right. We are done with legislation. On to the administrative reports. First up is the mayor report. Mayor Cross, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, citizens, for your attention today. Just a quick update on resolutions and council actions. We've approved ordinances and resolutions relative to the hot topics of discussion. I did talk to the city manager about Tyrell and Jeff Road as well as Cousins relative to the large sum of children who are unfortunately having to walk in the street and the need for sidewalks on those particular streets. I request also that in this session that we develop for Woodmore Town Center a response, or at least receive a response from G.S. Proctor, who is the representative for D.R. Horton, relative to the Woodmore Town Center at Glenarden. Citizens, in the newsletter, you'll also see that there is an issue relative to the expediency in which D.R. Horton closed Woodmore Town Center at Glenarden, at which providing concrete sidewalks and concrete streets and removing what would have been the water runoffs, which would have protected our streets. One of the concerns that I had is that D.R. Horton needed to actually provide us with an estimate of the damage relative to the amount of development that's happened and the road's ability to survive, now noting that we have grown expeditiously on our borders. So we are waiting to receive that feedback. As far as the office meetings over the course of this particular summer, we've had 7 different meetings and calls, including the Back to School Transitional Youth Extravaganza, where 530 students were supported. We had one of the largest volunteer bases out of our youth, with 70 youth volunteering, each of them receiving 5 hours of volunteer service towards graduation from high school. So there was a superb showing there. We did go through a record recovery from the summertime splurge with Demetria Michi Jeffries. She is a licensed financial professional and a financial literacy educator and has volunteered her services to support the city and citizens as required. Across the course of this summer, supported many nonprofits, one being addressing the human trafficking issue, the second largest crime growing in the state of Maryland, and the other one, a fight for those that are unfortunately suffering from cancer. I do acknowledge that the legislators in the House of Delegates has actually moved to create legislation to afford those that are suffering from more or less terminal illnesses to access to health care at a rate that is affordable. So this is good news. I had the very unique pleasure of being invited to meet Magic Johnson, a fantastic, and I say fantastic, new manager for our Washington Commanders. So I found that that meeting was extremely exciting, and that we have several executives who are interested in supporting our youth to come into the games this coming session. And so therefore, we just want to have the discussion. And if the community members have positively received this report, please let the mayor know, and we can set that up for us to actually plan for our students to get out to a game. Prince George's news you can use. There have been 6 new schools open across the school year. Many of these new schools do support citizens' children from the city of Glenarden. This alternative construction was done under a financial program under our county executive, Angela Alsobrook. And those 6 schools have actually created a total of 8,000 new seats for our Prince George's County students. Now, one of the good things that we want to acknowledge also with that was our Meals in the Classroom program. As you recall, Mayor sat as a witness on that particular bill, which did add back upwards of $1.4 million into the program to afford our students who, particularly our students of at-risk or challenged environments, which may not have access to the morning meal. So we are grateful again for community partners like Grind Hard, Dream Big LLC, who has been working hard with us since February the 4th in the inaugural Creative Youth Summits Arts Conference that we held at the Glenarden Community Center on February 4th of 2023. We will actually move forward with doing that February the 3rd of 2024 to support our youth who have the creative talent and the skills and the desire to move in that way. We look forward to building a more congenial operation when it comes down to our seniors. And I will acknowledge that we are looking at attending an actual event. And we are looking forward to receiving feedback from our seniors relative to that event, and particularly what type of travel you would like. we have been in contact with the Department of Resources for the state of Maryland, and they are able to provide us with some feedback of some awesome locations to go to in the state of Maryland, like state parks. But also the Moses Light Sound Show has also been recommended by one of our seniors to actually put together a trip for our seniors to actually go to the Light Sound Show, Moses, and that will be closer towards the December timeframe. So we would look forward to hearing from you, ccross@cityofglenarden.org. You can also reach me through the city number at 301-773-2100. Please leave a message with the executive assistant. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Next up is City Manager and Combined Administrative Staff Report. Oh, I'm sorry. Moving a little bit too fast. Are there any questions for the mayor on her report? Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for this detailed report. On the first action regarding the sidewalks in Ward 3, I'd be happy to partner with you on bringing forth a resolution for sidewalk retrofitting. That is something that I brought forward a couple of years ago. There wasn't much support for it, but I've done a great deal of research in terms of what needs to happen in order to do the sidewalk retrofitting. So happy to do that. And then with the Woodmore Town Center turnover, is it possible for us to explore alternative options? I do feel that D.R. Horton is not incentivized to hand over the streets, and therefore we're kind of stuck in a position where we're waiting for them to feel we're important enough to do it. But in the meantime, we really need to consider the safety and welfare of the citizens in the city, particularly those transversing across Glenarden Parkway. We know that that is a speed trap on at the Woodmore Town Center portion of Glenarden Parkway because of the fact that those streets haven't been turned over. And so because it hasn't been turned over, we're not able to put in traffic mitigation procedures. So I'm wondering if there can be some sort of negotiation with the county to state that D.R. Horton would not be let off the hook for the things that they need to do, but that we would still be able to do the improvements that we need to, because I think some of what D.R. Horton is working on wouldn't interfere with those traffic mitigation measures, whether it be speed bumps or putting up traffic signs like those. We shouldn't be prohibited from being able to do those because they need to do some repairs in other places. So maybe if we can get that agreement from the county, because I understand that the city of Glenarden is not party to the contract with D.R. Horton, it's actually the county. If we can work with them to offer that as a resolution to this issue that is really, you know, plaguing our city, because we want to make sure from one end of Glenarden Parkway all the way to the other that we are managing the traffic, and particularly because we have students walking, whether they're going to the elementary schools in Ward 1, or whether they're going to even Arwick-Ardma Elementary in Ward 3 and walking to Flowers, and they're basically walking in the streets because there are no sidewalks. So it's a danger to all involved. So if we can get them something, that would be, you know, greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Councilman Harry?
Yes, just to follow up on the sidewalk situation is that Councilwoman Fareed spoke of. In Ward 1 on Church Street, again, there's no sidewalks there. I was riding down there the other day and there's a woman in the street with a baby carriage because there are no sidewalks for them to walk down to take their kids to school. I think that needs to be looked at. That seriously needs to be looked at. And I think with this, I think the thing with the D.R. Horton situation, and I think we may want to look and see if they're following the detailed site plan. You know, if there's some violation there that we can actually look at, because the detailed site plan lays out everything that the developer is required to do. And if they're not doing it, there needs to be some type of, like you said, you know, not just a smack on the wrist saying you're going to do it, but something that really needs to be, their feet need to be held to the fire. Because unfortunately, they will not turn it over, because if they turn it over and it's not complete, then if something goes wrong, they're going to say, well, it's not us. You're the city, so I think we really need to look at, maybe even talk to the attorney and see what's what, because this has been dragging on for too long. I've never seen a developer get away with what they're getting away with right now. They've always been made, developers have always been made to fix it. And if we have to talk to, well, you can't talk to the county council rep because we got a proposal in front of her. But, we need to talk to somebody about that. Mm-hmm. Also, Mayor, you said you were looking at maybe trying to take some kids to the Redskins game. Now, will that invitation go out to the whole city of Glenarden so the children in Glenarden can avail themselves of those tickets if there's some made available? Or is it going to be a certain select few of your choosing?
Thank you, Councilman Herring. So we will need to take a survey basically to see if the children have an interest of attending the Commanders game. And then from that position, then we would have to do some type of competitive support, or even, first come, first serve. It could be something of that nature. There is never any select within the city of Glenarden. There would be, in fact, a all call for something like that. And then we may even have to equate it to grades if we come out of the first quarter. But we will work with the council to see how we want to do that based on whether or not the citizens actually see a desire to do that with the kids. I know it would be fantastic. And let me just say that they are doing a great job. They won the last game that they had, so I'm sure it would be exciting for the kids. Now, one of the key things that I will acknowledge is you're not going to be on the first 100 row. You're going to be up in the rafters, but it's still quite an energy to have, your presence there at the Commanders game. There's a lot of fire. I do want to acknowledge Councilwoman Fareed, as well as you, Councilman Herring, relative to D.R. Horton. The detailed site plan was changed, and that's the problem that we're having. Is that they took out those grates that were supposed to have the water runoff and decided to make a concrete street that came up against a concrete sidewalk, which now has oak trees growing in the easement. And we all know what that's going to look like in about 10 years. So that's the problem. And I did talk to Mr. Jones, and I've talked to Mr. Scotty, and I've asked as well to the representative, Mr. Trey Proctor, to actually work with D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton has acknowledged that they will do a street survey of the most traveled streets and provide us some feedback. One of the things that they tried to do was to say that it would be a problem and we would be causing an injury to our citizens. And we stated, well, that's just incorrect, because when you change the site plan, you assume the risk. At which case, what they really should do is a reevaluation based on the amount of new citizens as well as the amount of new personnel who have arrived on our borders, which use that particular street exclusively to go from the city of Glenarden all the way to Largo, and then from Largo back to Bowie. That street is the most tragically traveled street now outside of Glenarden Parkway. So this is something that D.R. Horton needs to be held to the fire. We should definitely work with our attorney. They need to be fined, and they have been fined on many occasions. If you remember the manhole discussion, where they actually put the metal without any covering. So when the metal rusts out, then we're going to have a problem with our manholes. So they have received fines, and different types of discussion have gone forth with DPI, but there's still much work to do in this arena. And the problem with our streets is, like I said, most communities that look like ours, they do this concrete to concrete, and then what we have is water gets under the concrete, and then you have sinkholes, and then you have patchwork throughout a very, very new environment. So we definitely want them to take ownership. And thank you for the Church Street, Ward 1, and no sidewalks, as much of that as we can. The criticality of the sidewalks, now that we have as much traffic coming through the city of Glenarden, to protection of our citizens, as our youth, as well as our seniors who are walking for fitness again, which is a good thing. Thank you, sir.
May I follow up on that? So you're saying that the detailed site plan was changed to exclude that requirement. So then we have a problem. So I'm not sure how we're going to address that issue, because once the planning board approves the detailed site plan, any modifications or changes to it, you're going to have a problem trying to get it, corrected.
Right.
And the person, and what happened was it was the county.
Yes.
The county gave them permission. And so the city needs to really be put back into that permitting process, as we've discussed many times before, that before a developer gets to change or do something, it needs to be brought to the city for us, as particularly as a courtesy. Thank you.
Right.
Madam Farid, Councilwoman Farid.
Yes, thank you, Council President. And just on the point around D.R. Horton offering to do the street survey, we should also be cautious of that, as Council Member Blagay, I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, said during the Legislative District 24 update last week, that these things are basically not real tests that, they're allowed to do. We saw that with the Alta Woodmore, how they're telling us that, there are no traffic safety concerns based upon what they're doing. So I would want to make sure we're challenging that and staying tight on the county. I think, as we all know, it is a tragic way of handling things, that the cities are excluded from the process. In this case, with Woodmore Town Center, the city is not even party to the contract. So I'm glad they were able to even show you the DSP, because when I was working with the attorneys, they said that we were not privy to that because we were not party to it. And even the contract and being able to see the status and et cetera, it was very difficult to do. And so that is definitely something that we need to work through with our county representatives, to make sure that this doesn't happen, because it's been too long. I've been living in this community for 6 years, and it was a problem for me for day one. So I can only imagine for those who have been here longer, and it's not something that the D.R. Horton seems to be fazed by the fines, et cetera. They're still allowed to do developments in the county. It's a problem.
Thank you, Councilwoman Farid.
Mr. President, one other thing. So, Mayor, could you give me that DSP number when you get a chance?
Okay. Any other questions regarding the mayor's report? Okay. Moving on. City Manager Combined Administrative Staff Report. Habita.
Yes. Attached to my report is also the report from the webmaster and Mr. Gray and the HR person, Karen Schultz, who is out on medical leave. Code enforcement is attached. If you have any questions on those, I can try to answer them as best of my ability on the particulars. On my report, I just want to mention a couple of things. We have not succeeded on the property on Ardmore-Ardwick Road regarding the recycling bin. There's a little struggle over this. It's kind of ridiculous, but I did persuade Goody Trucking to the GCI, rather, that's who they are now, to drop a new recycling bin to the homeowners. They did that, and because Bates is picking up along there and they do not want to change Bates, Bates refused to pick up from a Goody Trucking, a GCI bin. So they need a new recycling bin, so we're going to figure out if we have a spare one around here we can just take to them that is labeled recycling and leave it at that, because we're not going to win this one with Bates picking up along that strip, and the homeowners do not want to change to have their pickup be the only GCI homeowner who gets picked up on Ardmore. So that one's still to be fixed. In terms of most of the meetings that I attended, you probably already know about: the National Night Out, the luncheon for summer youth workers, and of course, meeting with all staff, implementation of the classification and pay plan. Worked on the land development project Alta Woodmore, which you know about, that it's coming up. The county council's district council review of the detailed site plan is going to happen on the 25th next week. And I'll be meeting with the attorney to go over logistics. And we'll convey that to the council in terms of there will be a 30-minute time frame for presentation by both parties, the developer and the city council, and the opposition from us and other citizens. And we should talk about, over the next few days over who would speak on behalf of the city. I'm not sure that the attorney is going to take the entire 30 minutes, so if there is a desire for folks to give their input from the council, from the elected body here, that would be something to plan ahead for. I want to point out, of course, on the impact fees, the council's already acted to have council member Hearing and Council President Curtis be the point folks on that, and the amount of money that's due the city at the 25% of the fees collected from 2008 to 2023 is $835,000 and change. With the money going allegedly into an escrow fund, that gives us at an interest rate that's earned on the escrow fund, we should be asking for the interest as well. The final thing I want to say, and that is request to City Council for the next couple of months to identify priority projects. I've got a meeting coming up on Wednesday with the Red Leaf architects to review the elevator, and I'm going to need some historical information on that to know where we're going to be headed on that. One final thing, and that is on the second page of the Treasurer's Report. You flip it over, you'll see the general fund we ended up a year, this is pre-audit obviously, we ended up the year with a $600,376 surplus. And then I will cede a few seconds of my time to the Treasurer to make one announcement.
So there are a few announcements that I want to make. First, the financial reports for July and August, those will be ready for the next meeting. The other report that I want to make is that as we track the $8 million that we put to the Maryland Investment Fund, right for 22 days we have earned approximately $25,700. So I think for 22 days that's a good pull in as income for our city. I will continue to monitor it and keep you up to date as we go along. That's it. Yes.
Are there any questions to either City Manager Habita or City Treasurer about the administrative reports? Councilman Harris?
Mr. President. Okay. I would like to get a monthly statement from the investment account that we have. That'd be great to get that.
I do have a copy.
Yeah, so if you can send it to the entire council.
Okay. Yeah. Also, on the back page of the financial report, this page here, where you list the account balances, I would like to have the most current balance on this report also, because this is July, and I know you received the same, I'm sure, for August already. So I would like to get the least most current balance so we can get a better idea of where we are. And also, I requested a while back a list of the property taxes, a list of the property tax statements that were sent out by Prince George's County. I'd like to get that, a list of the property tax statements of all the people who pay property taxes. I need to get a count on that, because I'm trying to get a count on that. And the county sends out our property tax statements. I'm sure they can give you a list of all the invoices that they sent out, all the property tax statements that they sent out to our residents.
I believe we requested it. It does take a little bit of time to get it. So, okay. But yes, we're aware of the request you made.
When did you request it?
Could I answer that?
Sure.
So yes, I made a request for that report. That report was asked. Another question that was asked is to have the addresses for the each taxpayer on there as well. So that kind of took some time for the county to bring back that information to me. So I got it, I have that information, and will be able to pass it on to you as early as tomorrow.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good. All right, thank you. Next up, Public Works Department, Mr. Simpson.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and residents of Glenarden. As you see in the report, I'll just touch on a few points or highlights or some updates that will also come on next month's report. We do have a new hire who started the day after Labor Day, so we are now working with one temporary employee right now. We focused for this particular reporting period on, and I hope you guys saw some of the results of this, clearing out tree debris and limbs, particularly on the bridges and some of the areas, so you can see a bit better in those areas. We also, just a quick update, realize we have to do a resolution for some surplus equipment. So the one truck that we still have, we're going to be presenting a resolution for surplus for that, as well as some other equipment in October and for those October meetings. We are still providing Go Room support for the Go Room coordinator or events manager until they're fully staffed there as well. One other quick update with the Cobe Electric, we just got approval, or we're going to have them come out to do the exterior lighting of the building, as well as some repairs to the Veterans Memorial. And I think that is it as far as any updates, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson, questions, Councilwoman Jones?
Good evening, Director Simpson. I just wanted to know if there were some lessons learned that we took away from Glenarden Day, because I did notice when I attempted to use the bathrooms down here that both of the stools were stopped up. Do we need to, is there something that the Public Works needs to relay to the council in terms of events, maybe porta potties the next event, or a porter for the inside, somebody that would, stand guard and make sure that the bathrooms stay cleaned and usable when our guests come in?
Yes, ma'am. I definitely would suggest porta potties for future events when they're that large, particularly to be able to offset some of that, and maybe reserve the interior bathrooms for seniors, things of that nature. I believe we discussed that in one of the committee meetings. Just didn't have the time and locations. We didn't want to have them in certain spots when it wasn't fully planned out. But I believe that's something that is being looked at for the next events.
Okay. It was a great event, but that was one of the things takeaways that I saw, that as far as, lessons learned through these events that we have that we might need to acknowledge.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Public Works, Department of Public Works?
No, but I do need to go back to Ms. Hopper on code, so you can move forward.
We'll circle back after the chief's report. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Chief's report, Deputy Chief Jackson.
Good evening again, everyone. You all have a copy of the Chief's report. Are there any questions or concerns?
Any questions for the Deputy Chief on the Chief's report? Hearing none, thank you.
There is one comment I'd like to make. About 2 weeks ago, Montgomery County detectives came down and wanted our assistance to serve a search warrant on a resident over in Tallow Court. They had locked up a gentleman that lived in the city for armed carjacking, and they wanted to do a search warrant on his room, and they recovered some items that they was looking for, and he's still in custody as of this day.
Mr. President, I do have a question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So what the police department will be doing trunk or treat this year?
To my understanding, yes, I think October 28th.
Okay. All right.
And Sergeant Richardson is taking care of that detail.
Okay. All right.
Councilwoman Jones.
So, yeah, I saw some flyers that, that they were going, so evidently their vendors and everybody is in place. Because I saw a flyer already put out saying that trunk or treat is going to be from 1 to 4 in the normal place. So I'm assuming that all of their vendors have been secured and they're ready to go.
I'll have to check with Sergeant Richardson tomorrow on that to confirm that information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You mind me following up?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm not. Maybe I'm trying to remember. So in the budget, did we put trunk or treat and Harvest Day
In the police budget.
in the police budget?
Yeah.
Okay. So who's doing Harvest Day?
It's combined.
Okay. So it's on. So when is Harvest Day gonna happen? Do y'all know?
Have no.
No. It's one event.
But it's under. Oh, so this is trunk or treat / Harvest Day.
Yeah.
This one event.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's going. Okay. Okay. I just want to be clear on that. All right. Thanks.
Well, Deputy Chief, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilman Herring, the follow-up question.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
For code.
Yes.
Ms. Habada, I need to, I guess my issue is, again, looking at codes, because I'm seeing violations that's not being addressed. And I'm just curious of what's being written and who's writing citations. So I would like to get a listing for the last 3 months of the citations that have been written and who wrote what.
Yep.
Because I mean, today I saw somebody working on a car all day on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just got to make sure that we have someone out there patrolling, and in the evening time is when they're getting away with this.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Herring. All right. We'll close out that portion of the agenda and move on to the next citizens' comments. As we move on to citizens' comments, each citizen will have 5 minutes to come up, and with this meeting, you can speak about any concerns you have. It could be about the reports you heard, legislation, anything you want. As it relates to decorum, the expectation is that everyone is professional, kind. There's no attacking of anyone. You can address council members, but you cannot attack council members. Your 5 minutes is your 5 minutes. Once you surrender your 5 minutes, then your time is up. So, if you would like to use your 5 minutes, please do so. After you sit down, then if a council member has a question of you, then you may be able to respond to that if it's a direct question. But if not, your 5 minutes is your 5 minutes. All right. With that, if you're in the room, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you. You can move up to the podium. If you're online, please raise your virtual hand and I'll call on you. If you do not know how to raise your virtual hand, just say something to be acknowledged and then I'll put you in a queue to go. With that, the floor is open to citizens' comments. Hearing, see your hand. Ms. Wilson. When you come up, you can state your name, and your 5 minutes will begin.
Please turn your mic on.
We can't hear anything.
Please turn your mic on.
Is your mic on? There we go.
You said to me during or either after the meeting that you thought that I was going to give the coach from the Boys and Girls Club a hard time. The fact is that if I had not been interrupted, everyone would have known that I was giving him a compliment for advertising the club for recruiting children. Again, you're trying to control me. I was told I could not say anything to the coach, but I had to talk to the council. The fact is, I have never given anyone a hard time, never harassed anyone or disrespected anyone. There was no factual basis for the interruption. Another example is at one meeting, I remained standing after I left the podium. You proceeded to tell me to take a seat. I was standing because my legs were hurting from sitting so long. So let's get back to Tuesday night. Not only could I not ask the questions that I had, but I was put out of the meeting. For what? I wasn't belligerent. I wasn't disrespectful. I didn't curse at anyone. I didn't call anyone names. I didn't do anything to cause a problem. It was not necessary to put me out of a meeting that was designed for me, the citizen. Mr. President, you had the ability to mute me, but instead of doing that, you put me out of the meeting. President Curtis, you said to me that I was on the council and I know the rules. You're right, I was on the council, but rules change. I do know that there are rules which should be abided by the council, which the council should abide by, and the administration. So since rules are rules, why isn't the council abiding by the rules, the charter, and enforcing it when it comes to the treasurer and the city manager? Why is it that there are no controls set for a treasurer who can move the majority of the city's money? Why are there no rules for him? No controls. Why is it that the treasurer and the city manager can spend more than $6,000 without council approval? Why doesn't the council adhere to the rules for them? And what's really awful is they have not followed the charter multiple times. Why hasn't the council gone by the rules? But I guess my little 5 minutes of speaking about legislation is a threat to you. I just want to be treated like you treat other citizens. Citizens like Ms. Butler, like Ms. Hunter, like Ms. Crutchfield, Mr. Powell, and other citizens. I have experienced discrimination, disrespect, and rudeness from the council president. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Are there any other citizens' comments? Ms. Hunter?
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? You cannot hear me? Why not? Can you hear me now?
There we go. Just speak into the mic.
I'm speaking
so
into
people
the
online, so we can hear you, but the people online can't.
I know, that's why I came, because I couldn't hear y'all.
Oh.
Okay, so how am I supposed to know if they can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alita Hunter. I'm a longtime resident of Glenarden. I want to speak on a couple of things. First, I want to go back to the mayor's report regarding the back to school event that was held at the recreation center. It was an awesome event, and there were a lot of volunteers that came from Elizabeth Seton. I don't know how many volunteers from the city of Glenarden actually were there, but there were a large amount of girls that came from Elizabeth Seton. Whereas it was an awesome event, when it comes to children, I don't like separation. And towards the end of the event, a couple of kids were selected, like, okay, this kid did this and this kid did that, so we're going to go ahead and give them this. Any child that's giving of their time deserves to be honored. And the honor could just be thank you for your service, because kids, they're fragile. You never want a child to feel like, oh, I came and I served diligently, but then you called out one child, and one particular child that was called out, that was the cream of the crop, also had to be told to stop cursing by several parents that were there. Okay, so I didn't like the separation. The event was awesome. The other thing is with Public Works, there has been an influx of trash and garbage, debris, empty beer cans, bottles all over the place. I reached out to my councilman in Ward 1 to tell him, and I sent pictures of just a bunch of beer cans from Piedmont onto Johnson Avenue, and it sat there. It wasn't just there and then it was gone. And I know Public Works is not putting it there, but I don't know what we can do in Glenarden to solve some of these issues. There's trash burning going on. Now, unfortunately, some neighbors have been told that they are allowed to burn trash after 4 p.m. That is not true. And that whoever told them that is no longer employed by the city. However, it's still happening. Now, I am asthmatic. I have a lot of stuff going on with my lungs, and I have people on my street and behind my street who burn trash. And I had a respiratory issue last week behind them doing this, and it needs to stop. And I know you don't have eyes and ears everywhere, so you're going to rely on the citizens to do it. But also, as a citizen who's vocal, you get people that's like, oh, here she come. Let me go in the house. Well, here I am. Go in your house, but stop burning trash. The other thing is the speeding on the highway. I mean, it's the light change. It means nothing. Red lights mean nothing anymore. Right here on Glenarden Parkway, crossing over here from the town hall, going across, they blow right through that light. I think it's a camera there now, so that's awesome. It looks like it's a camera at that light. I don't know if that's for pictures or if it's surveying. I don't know. It was something else. And I forgot that quick. Glenarden Day was phenomenal. Thank you, everyone. I love to see the city come together and show unity and work as one, and I absolutely love it. I had something else, but how much more time I have? I don't have my glasses on. Oh, I have time. Okay. So, I also feel as though the sidewalks on Church Street, going to that school, it's an issue. It really is an issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Any updates on the King site? I know you can't answer me now, but any updates on the King site and what the plan is for that land that's there? My concern is our youth and seniors in Ward 1, so they don't have to cross over and go to the recreation center. They don't have access to whatever recreation center is over in Ward 3. So just for safety hazards, safety purposes, I wanted to know what is the plan for that site, and what's the time frame to be able to utilize it again. I see the playground and all of that, but I'm talking about a building where maybe we can do some after school stuff with the kids, or kids don't have to go home alone. They could, be supervised at a center or something, get some homework help. I think that's it. I think that's all. Oh yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
I want to
Thank you.
respond.
Councilwoman Jones.
So, Ms. Hunter, you're saying that the open burning has not been addressed. That is definitely in our charter, in our codes. It says open burning is against the law. Even small minor things as parking on your grass. We have a lot of people that are parking on their grass. I have reported it to the administration. I'm not sure that it's been addressed because the residents continue to do it, at certain residents that I've told them about. So you're saying that nobody's addressed the open burning yet? Because open burning in Prince George's County is against the law. Mm-hmm.
To my understanding, when they were approached about it at that time, they were told you can do it after a certain time. So in all fairness, if they believe that that is the county law, they're still doing it. So I'm like, some form of communication needs to go out, both in English and in Spanish, so that they are aware that this is not legal. But it's whenever I pull up, they'll try to stomp it out. All of a sudden it goes away. So whether or not they know it's legal, that it's illegal, I don't know. But communication, once it comes out, you can't say you don't know.
Okay, just like another issue that we have in the city of raccoons, and my suggestion was to do a flyer. I think the flyer went out, but I am going to reinforce that by going out and doing flyers one day this week, again in that area where they had the raccoon issue. Maybe we need to put flyers out concerning, I also talked to our webmaster about, I have an issue over in Ward 3 with dogs roaming, so I want to do a flyer for that, and then also maybe for the open burning, we can just put it in the area where you're experiencing this. You said on Fisk Avenue and Johnson. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens' comments? Hearing none. We will take a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel.
Before we do that, can I make a comment?
Sure. 1 second. Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Councilman Herring for his leadership with Glenarden Day, as well as Councilman Hairston and Councilwoman Guillaume. Glenarden Day has been an amazing event every year, and I thank you for providing an opportunity for the community to come together in celebration. The weather seems to always hold up, so it definitely seems like God's on our side with this event. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I love interacting with the children in the community and being able to support them with their little cute dances. Thank you for being Santa or our big Uncle Herring, handing out $10 to each of those kids out there. They certainly enjoyed it. Thank you for, the good food. Just thank you so much for honoring people in the community who may be overlooked at times. Just thank you so much for organizing. I know it takes a lot of work. I'm thankful to all of the city employees who spend their time in doing that. And I'm just looking forward to continuing this event and this tradition. I really love the t-shirts this year. I know I spruced mine up, but it was no disrespect. I just am into fashion. So I really loved the history that was shared on that shirt. And I think that is something that we need to be more intentional about, sharing the great history. There are many people in this community who have been here for a long time, but there are many people like myself and my family who are relatively new, but we still feel a sense of pride in the city and knowing all that has come before us and making sure that we carry on that legacy. So I would love to see us continue efforts in that regard. Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Mr. President. And let me just say, I'd like to thank the City Council and the administration, because we couldn't do this without the City Council support and funding, making sure that, we have the resources that we need to provide to the citizens a great event. I do want to give a big shout out to Public Works, Mr. Simpson and Public Works. They were here at 7 o'clock that morning. setting up tents, tables, chairs, everything that we needed, they were there. If we needed to add a table, they added a table. If we need to move a table, I know he got tired of me because I'm like, if we need to move the table over here, need to move this one over here. He's like, okay, I got it. So I appreciate Mr. Simpson's in Public Works, the police department and administrative staff, city manager. Like I said, it's a large effort, but when you have a great crew, a great team, it's easy. And I did tell my sister, I'm not giving no more AKAs their shirts early because y'all always cut them up. No, but that seemed to be the tradition with the AKAs, and everybody like, oh, where you get that shirt from? I was like, go see my sister. She done did that stuff, So yeah, but I do appreciate all the hard work from everybody and the commitment and dedication. From the council and the citizens. I'm just glad that we were able to put on a nice event. I mean, we have been blessed almost every year with gorgeous weather, recognizing our rising stars who is sitting right there, Miss Anaya Stevenson, thank you for coming out. Thank you for entertaining us, and it's just amazing. And I love seeing, because I remember when we met her a year ago and how she's grown and developed into a nice young lady, who's doing very well. So congratulations again, again, thank you everybody for your support. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got one more statement I want to make. Councilman Herring mentioned Director Simpson being at the city at 7 in the morning. I also want to mention too that not only was he here at 7 in the morning per Mr. Herring, but at 6 o'clock that night when I was on my way home, I saw him out making sure that the signage was out there for the meeting tonight. And I applaud you for that, because I know that after seeing you around Glenarden Day, with your guys, with your crew, making sure that everything was in order for Mr. Herring and Mr. Harrison, Councilwoman Guillaume, and then to see you continually, after that hour was gone, everybody was, I guess, cleared out except for the event that was getting ready to happen in the Gold Room. You were still out making sure that the Public Works functions in the city were attended to. I appreciate you. I salute you. Thank you.
The way you guys were able to flip this around from Glenarden Day to another event in the Gold Room was amazing. And one last thing before we close out, we have a new Glenarden themed song, and that is amazing. I'm not going to call out the council member, but we
call them out. We
have a new song that we should play at every Glenarden Day. So I want to appreciate the talents of Councilman Hairston. So we just got to make sure we get him on stage next time. Yeah. All right. With that, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council Clerk. Oh, any discussion? All right, Council Clerk.
Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
I was Glenarden dreaming. Yes.
Councilman Hairston?
Yes.
Councilman Herring?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ferguson?
Yes.
Council President Curtis?
Yes.
Vote is unanimous.